All right, welcome back to another installment of the Wide Right Podcast. I'm Miami Hurricanes beat writer Manny Navarro of The Athletic, joined once again by Carlos Ledo of the MIA All Day Podcast. It's Friday, right around 6 p.m. on the eve of Miami's game against Georgia Tech. I'm actually up in Atlanta right now. My hotel room's about less than a mile from Bobby Dodd Stadium where the Hurricanes will be playing. I'd show you, but you can see I'm not in my usual surroundings. Carlos, interesting developments here in the last 24 hours for the Hurricanes. Jaden Rashada, the quarterback, the top 100 recruit, four-star out of Pittsburgh, California, decommits. And so there's mass panic among Hurricanes fans because now Mario has lost his first recruit since the basically meltdown of the season because they're 4-5 heading into this game, and they're underdogs basically their final three games. So we're starting to see a little bit of withering away of this recruiting class. They're down to 19 commitments now instead of 20. They moved from 7th in the recruiting class, I think, to 9th. So people are freaking out over those kind of things. I guess my question to you to start this conversation, what was your initial reaction when you woke up this morning? Because I'm guessing you didn't get that news at midnight, because that's basically
Oh, hell no. I'm a grown ass man, dog. What am I going to be doing up at midnight on a Thursday? I'm not 21 anymore. It's not 609 in the Grove has been closed for a long, long time. I haven't been able to go to Banana Joe's or Howl at the Moon down there in a long time, or even Mr. Mo's. So there's no reason to be up that late on a Thursday night. And also, I know this news is really getting people freaked out. If you ask me to podcast, bringing me in for overtime, by the way, which I'm not going to receive, but that's fine, and interrupting what could be right now my first drink during the in-home happy hour.
well,
But
listen,
I'm here for you, bro.
I appreciate it. And, recruiting is 24/7, right? That's what it is. It's 24/7, 365 days a year. And this was a big sort of development because up until now, we'd seen nothing but positive with Miami's recruiting classes, right? Everything was going great. So this is sort of the first shockwave. And I got to tell you, between that and my article that came out this morning, which covered the what's the word I'm looking for? Mediocrity of the
Yeah.
last 19 years of the Miami Hurricanes and what they have to do better. I got a few phone calls from different people in and around the program.
Telling me you're not helping the situation, bro.
Well, not that they're mad at me. No, they're not mad at me, but this is sort of damage control in the sense of, okay, well, what does this mean? What should people take away from what this means? Because this is sort of the first moment where you're worried now about Mario's reign as coach. And I just wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about that, the quarterback situation going into tomorrow's game. And some of the things that I've heard, and I figured, we're not going to put this on the regular podcast, but we'll share this with our YouTube subscribers to give them a little something extra, a little something special for subscribing to
A,
us
li-
and being a part
a
of
little
the
special taste, a little special taste for coming, being fans of the show. So yeah,
right.
listen, I mean, for me, the relationship with Rashada was always a little bit tenuous because to me, it always seemed like money was the driver in his recruitment. Um, and it always seemed like Ruiz ended up pulling out the bigger check to get him to come down to Miami when battling that Florida Gator collective. And when a guy is committed solely for the purpose of money, and I'm sure there were other reasons why he liked the University of Miami, or else he wouldn't have considered them. But if money's the main driver, then really that connection to universities is always going to be a little bit paper thin. It's not going to be something where he feels a strong connection to the school. Um, on top of that, I mean, it's hard to say this when the guy's rated so highly, but I always thought he was a bit overrated. I didn't think he was a top flight prospect like some of those top five quarterbacks are in the country. He just seemed to me like he reminded me a lot of N'Kosi Perry in the way he plays and the way he looks. And I think maybe N'Kosi even looked better in high school in some situations. And you've seen him struggle a little bit this season. If you follow the Athletic, if you read the Athletic, they put out a report every week on how the top rated quarterbacks in the country are doing in high school. And Rashada has struggled a couple times, especially early in the season. Um, I like Emory Williams, the other guy they have committed. I think this is why you recruit two quarterbacks in every cycle, or try to, in case you lose one, because you never know what's going to happen. I think Emory reminds me a lot of Brad Kaya in the way he looks, and not Brad Kaya in high school, but Brad Kaya already at the University of Miami as a freshman. So I think he's got a lot of room to develop and add to his frame as well, and be a better quarterback down the road. I mean, it sucks when you lose a top flight recruit. Any way you slice it, it's not good. It doesn't look good on the program. But at the end of the day, you still have one more quarterback committed. You still have a very good young quarterback in Ja'Cory Brown. For the moment, you still have a young quarterback in Jake Garcia on the roster. You still have Tyler Van Dyke. And in the era of the transfer portal, where quarterbacks are readily available, that doesn't sting as much.
Well, look, they obviously face different levels of competition. Let's get into Emory Williams and Jaden Rashada. But one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sit here and say Jaden Rashada isn't talented, because he is. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the
Of
country.
course.
Ninth overall, I think, in the rankings, or seventh, somewhere around there, somewhere in the top 10. And the Gators obviously wanted him. And the one thing I will say, I was with him in Las Vegas for that 7-on-7 in July, when it was hot as hell, when he was playing for the Miami Immortals 7-on-7 team, which is John Ruiz's team. I was around him, his family, different people. They really liked Florida. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that that kid was ready to commit to Florida before Miami made some chess moves of their own. And they got him to come after that 7-on-7 tournament, when he had visited Gainesville and seemed to be destined to commit, to reconsider. And he went down to Miami and he reconsidered. And again, look, I'm not going to get into how much money and this much, because you know what? In the end, nobody knows but the people involved, right?
Right.
But in the end, I can say this. I think without question, Florida's offer was just as good as Miami's, or close to it. And the kid never stopped liking the Gators, right? Like, I mean, this is why I always talk to you about this, Carlos. Like I tell you, I tell Big O whenever I go on the show, we make a big deal about recruiting because it's a marathon. These kids are recruited from their sophomore, freshman year, they get offers, and we follow it all the way through. But really, it always comes down to the last 6 weeks, because that is when you get to November, that's when people start making decisions about coaching staff, who's coming back, who's going to be a part of this, who's moving on, who's going to leave this program, what is that going to do to the recruits, etc. This is just the beginning. There's going to be more flips. There's going to be more changes. There's going to be a lot more movement. And I don't know if it's going to be all related to Miami's class, but I'm just telling you that, and hopefully our listeners get this, that the way recruiting has changed so much, where guys make commitments in the spring and the summertime because they kind of want to lock in a space. It really means nothing if your team struggles,
Yep.
or if your team is going to have a coaching change, or if any of those things. So all of that plays a factor in this. And here's something else. Speaking specifically to Emory Williams, before Jaden Rashada committed to Miami, I've had conversations with people at Miami. They love Emory Williams. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just saying that after the fact. I said this to you on this podcast before. I've said it. I mean, people know. The comparison I got from one person at Miami was Joe Flacco, that they think he has that kind of potential. Well, guess what? Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. He went to Delaware, didn't get highly recruited, but he was a guy who went and made a lot of noise. Now, I will say this. Schools are pursuing him, okay? He's from Panhandle. FSU is right down the road from him. The Seminoles, they would love to steal a quarterback from Miami and put a hole in the Hurricanes' recruiting efforts here. But I will add this, Carlos. Miami's quarterback situation for next year is up in the air. We really don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if Tyler Van Dyke is going to come back. I'll get into all that in a second. But I just wanted to get that part of it off my chest, because I think we have to remember here, sometimes it doesn't matter what you're rated, and Emory Williams isn't rated very high, somewhere in the high 600s, but he went to that 11-on-11 camp, and there were a lot of people who liked him.
We're impressed, yeah. And I'll say this. Now, let me go back to my original statement, because there are going to be people in the comments and people on Twitter, when they hear this podcast or they watch it on YouTube, that are going to say that I was shitting on Jaden Rashada when I said he was a little overrated. A little overrated means that I don't think he's one of the top 7 quarterbacks in the country. Maybe he's top 20. That's what I mean, guys. Okay, so before we get all crazy and start saying that I was shitting on Rashada, top 20 is pretty good, okay? And Manny's backing up my statement about Emory Williams with everything he's heard in the past. And I think that's why when I bring up the situation of I think money being one of the drivers, he liked, like you said, Florida all along. He was really looking to go to Florida. The Hurricanes made their move at the end and got him to commit. But when you're having a bad season, if the connection doesn't run deeper than that surface level, then that's when you lose guys. When things get rough and you see the ones that are really committed, like the guys that keep coming out on Twitter and saying that they're not moving, they're not flinching, like recently Nathaniel Joseph, that's because they built a relationship and they built a trust with Mario and the staff, and they feel like that's where they want to be. And it's not about the surface level things that have been offered to bring them over there, right? Either way, it sucks. It sucks to lose a quarterback, but like I said, it's great. This is why you go after 2 quarterbacks in one cycle if you can. And I hope that Emory Williams sticks, because like you said, I think I've been impressed with what I've seen from him in his huddle tapes and what we've heard from other people. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback that can develop the U. And who knows how long he'll have to sit and wait based on what the quarterback situation is going to be like next year.
Couple stats to share with you. I was handed this information earlier today. Emory Williams, 63% completion percentage, 2,052 yards, 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. When he went to the Elite 11, Sports Illustrated ranked him the third best quarterback. Quote, he made all the throws he needed, as well as the occasional difficult tosses, skyrocketing into the top 3 by the end of day 3. This is the information on Jaden Rashada. Very similar completion percentage, 64%, 2,122 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 picks. He was ranked 11th among the group of quarterbacks there. He was a bit inconsistent throughout the day, especially on the move. It was difficult for him to string multiple good throws together. Again, I'm just sharing you information that I was handed based off of evaluations, okay? Stuff that I have been told and stuff that I heard coming out of the Elite 11 camp, that Emory played really well. And then a lot of people thought, he was a good rising quarterback. That said, he hasn't moved up the ranking. So obviously the 247 guys only have so much faith in him as an overall player. Couple other things I want to talk about here. The recruiting class. One thing you have to understand here, okay, and I've had these conversations with multiple people. Miami's evaluation and the way Mario evaluates players, and this is based off of history at Oregon. There are times he will take commitments from kids, but really he's evaluating them all the way through their senior season. And unless he sees what he likes, they will push a guy away. And I'm not saying that's what happened with Rashada here. That's not. I don't want you to
Be clear.
To mistake anything that I'm saying here. But what I am saying is that coaches do this beyond Mario. Okay, they you will see guys decommit and what is it? Oh, they stopped calling. Why did they stop calling? Maybe there was something in your senior tape or something that they getting to know you more as a person. They thought, well, this guy's really not a fit for our program. Again, I'm not saying that's the case with Rashada, but I am saying that to educate you when you see decommitments in the future. Don't always just assume that it's the kid picking and going somewhere else. Sometimes the coaching staff will tell them, look, we like you. We think you'd probably be better at another place. They will tell players and parents that at times, okay? The recruiting rankings, all of that plays a factor in why teams sometimes take commitments. If it's a highly ranked recruit and it's going to help a coach look good, right, and be able to brag, hey, I've got a really high recruiting rank. Look at our team. We've got the 6th or 7th ranked class. Sometimes coaches will take those commitments. And then what'll happen is as you get closer and closer to signing day, those things will wither away as the new commitments come in and the different players that they look at want to be a part of the program. And I know it seems like an excuse, or it sounds like I'm making an excuse for Mario for losing Rashada. Again, I'm not even talking about, I'm talking about me covering recruiting for 25 years and knowing this subject and seeing what happens over time. I just want you to understand that it's not always, hey, the player wanted to go somewhere else. He got more money. Sometimes the coaches will be honest with a player or a high school coach and be like, hey, thanks for committing to us, but we think you should go somewhere else. And that's why it's never over until they sign on the dotted line.
Right. Like the famous saying at Trash Pile Stadium, it's not over till it's over.
Right.
And it's one of those things, man. Recruiting is a thing that until these guys sign on the dotted line, nothing is guaranteed. And it's a great thing that Miami got a commitment from Cormani McLean, but you don't know until he signs, until he's committed fully to the University of Miami when that letter of intent comes in via fax still, which is ridiculous to me, but still, to the University of Miami, and he fully commits himself by signing on the dotted line and signing a contract, effectively taking the scholarship. And I think, like you were talking about with the coaches, a lot of these guys will take commitments early on based on their ranking to boost their cachet with other recruits. And once they fill that recruiting class out with other guys on the same level or maybe ranked a little higher, and they feel they could drop that guy and still maintain that position in terms of the recruiting rankings, they'll let that guy go. Because as you said, a lot of these guys, they earn bonuses based on what their recruiting classes are ranked. If they're a top 10 class, top 15 class, just like they make bonuses based on whether they make bowl games or win conference championships or even division championships. So it's a lot more cutthroat than people realize. Even when kids are committed and they come on board and they join the team, there are times those scholarships are renewable just for 1 year, and they'll cut kids loose at the end of the year. They'll say, listen, I think it's best if you pack your stuff and go. And now with the transfer portal, that's more prevalent than ever. at least the kids don't have to sit out anymore if that happens. So there's a lot that goes into recruiting, and there's a lot that goes into building a roster and developing and retaining that roster, which is very important. Which we're gonna have to see Mario do in this offseason, because there's gonna be a ton of losses coming up from graduation and possibly hitting the transfer portal, and we'll see how he's able to remake this roster in his image and the way he wants to build the foundation of this team.
Well, I know this, Carlos. There's 9 seniors, guys that are basically running out of eligibility after this year. That doesn't mean there's only going to be 9 guys leaving. I
Right.
think the number's closer to the 30s in terms of departures of guys that they are encouraging to go play elsewhere. Because look, the bottom line is you have X amount of scholarships, and every coach, when you first get a job, the first 18 months, you can basically alter the roster. The rules allow now for coaches to tell players, look, we don't really want you on the team anymore, but they have to honor the scholarship. In other words, they still got to help that kid finish school for that year. Now, what ends up happening is a lot of the kids transfer, which makes life a lot easier on the university. They don't have to pay for that scholarship, to have them finish their academics. But and not only that, but the kids want to go play somewhere else. So all of that is a part of college football nowadays. I expect major roster turnover, and one huge position here is obviously quarterback. Okay, because
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow my understanding is that Jakari Brown is going to make his first start as a true freshman for the Hurricanes tomorrow against Georgia Tech. Part of that, I mean, it doesn't take a hound dog to sniff out if you listen to Mario at the end of the last game saying that Jakari gives him the best chance to win, right? That his legs and what he was doing in that game. Tyler Van Dyke is here in Atlanta. He made the trip up, but he's not going to be playing in this game. He's going to be there basically as a sounding board like he was against Virginia Tech. I think there's some issues with Jake Garcia, his confidence level, the way that he's been playing. So look, it's a wide open board right now for Miami as far as their quarterback of the future and their quarterback for 2023. I think Jakari Brown is going to be given an opportunity to run this offense. He gives them an added dimension as far as a runner and playmaker. I think he's kind of very Anthony Richardson-esque in the sense that Richardson can make some special plays with his legs like he does for Florida. I think Jakari is sort of from that same ilk. I would think that Jakari actually might even have a better arm than Anthony Richardson at times, a little bit more accurate, but that's something he's been working on. So we'll see how he does in this game and whether or not he starts against Clemson and Pittsburgh down the road. But I think, if you're a Miami fan, this season has gone to crap. They're 4-5. This is the time to experiment to see what you can honestly do here. And I think this program, they're going to be looking at the transfer portal for quarterbacks. If there's a better option there, if your quarterbacks next year, if Tyler Van Dyke decides I'm going to go pro, which he still may do, your quarterback options essentially could end up being, if Jake Garcia transfers out, Jakari Brown and Emory Williams. One first and second year players. So Miami's definitely going to look into the portal to look and get an older, experienced quarterback. I think in that scenario, so that you have sort of a veteran guy you can go to if you need to. But if Tyler comes back, I think he's got a chance to be the starter. Now, I will say this: I think Tyler, in his own way, he's trying to make the NFL. Is this the best team to help him get there? Right? Is this the best team for his ability and skill set? With this offensive line and the lack of wide receiver play consistency, he may have to go somewhere else to find that. And I don't think anybody at Miami is going to hold it against him. Obviously, they would want him to stay because I think they view him as their true number one. But this whole quarterback situation is going to be amazing to see how it unfolds here, Carlos, over the next few months.
Yeah, and I don't see Tyler coming back and playing the rest of the season. I just wouldn't risk an injury to him. Not just because you don't want to hurt a guy that you feel is going to be a starter for you down the road, but also you don't want to hurt the kid's career. You don't want him to have a season-ending or career-ending injury out there trying to get a game to get you bowl eligible. It's not even like you're trying to get into a conference championship. You're just trying to get the 500. So it's not worth risking the kid's health at all for that. I think ultimately Tyler's going to look at this roster, see what's coming in next year, see the turnover, have this experience in the back of his mind and say, you know what, I love it down here, but at the end of the day, what I need to do is what's best for me and my family. And if I think the best thing for me is to jump ship and go somewhere else that'll give me a better shot at producing and giving one last final look for scouts at me producing at a high level at another school, then that's what I need to do. Because right now, I mean, if he jumps in the draft right now, as much as he was projected as a first rounder coming into the season, I don't see him getting picked anywhere earlier than the 5th round. Why would they, based on this year's production? That's even being very very generous. So I think for me, it's about his future and what he wants to do. If he's really destined to go to the NFL, I think it's best for him to probably switch programs, go somewhere that'll feature him in the offense, and give him the best opportunities with the most weapons to make noise. And if I'm Jimbo Fisher and I'm sitting here and I'm seeing Tyler Van Dyke is considering transferring, or he goes out there and puts his name in the portal, that's the first phone call I'm making, because I know I've got enough weapons and enough guys around him that I can make a lot of noise with that quarterback, and that'll be his Jameis Winston at Texas A&M. That'll finally get the stink of Jimbo Fisher never recruiting a quarterback at Texas A&M off his back, and allow him to try and make a push at a conference championship and possibly a national championship. And it'll also help Tyler because he'll be the featured guy, and he'll work with a guy that's put guys in the NFL and has coached Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. So that will help Tyler as well. As far as Jake Garcia is concerned, also, I mean, at this point, like you said, it reminds me of Chuck Knobloch when he was with the Yankees, when he just got the yips and couldn't throw to first base. And that seems like what's taken over Jake Garcia. It seems like every time he gets in the game, he just turns the ball over. That interception he threw against Florida State, he just dropped back and just threw it without even looking at where the receiver was. He just expected the comeback to be there, didn't see they were in cover 3. The guy was playing the out and he threw it right at him. And then the fumble was it just popped out of his hands. It's incredible. And I think at this point, Jake probably needs to make a move for his own sanity, for his own mental health, and to get his confidence back, just to be in a different environment, a new setting, and try and reestablish himself somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, and as far as Jakari is concerned, I think it's basically his audition to be the starter, or at least be in the driver's seat next year if Garcia and TVD leave over the last 3 games. And it also will let Mario know, hey, if he can't handle these last 3 games, if he doesn't look like we can move him into the starting role, if we could basically prep him to be the starter coming into the season next year, then we need to go to the portal and find a guy that could be a starter and give him a 1-year buffer.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Again, the quarterback position, many other positions on this team. We can't disregard the amount of injuries and the way that they've affected the results this year as well. I think ultimately Mario is going to figure this thing out with this roster and this team. I think the ultimate message I got this morning was they know this is for the long haul, and the only way you're going to fix it is with a little bit of stability. I would expect there will be some coaching changes at some point. Guys will be ushered in and out, and they will find the right fits, etc. But for right now, I think the number one priority is get the culture right. And if you read my story at theathletic.com, I talked to a bunch of people this week for that story to get an idea of, kind of the things that have to be fixed first before you can start winning here at Miami. And make sure you check it out. A lot of good stories on The Athletic this week. Bruce Feldman had an excellent piece on Michigan and Jim Harbaugh and how he has a consigliere that really helps him out, and kind of enlightening a little bit on Josh Gaddis as well when he was the offensive coordinator there and some of the struggles he had. A lot of good content, man, at The Athletic. Make sure you
absolutely. And I quoted that article, but I also quoted your article, man. Also quoted your article on that freshman report you do every week, talking about Georgia Tech's quarterback. So did it on my podcast, and I'm trying to pump The Athletic subscriptions. It's not working because nobody listens or reads me or watches my videos, but I'm trying. The 12 people that listen to the podcast and the other 5 that watch the YouTube channel, they're all in.
All right. Well, hey, listen, we got some support. That's all that matters here. We'll eventually get it rolling. Carlos, thanks for coming on, talking some Canes with me on a Friday night. I'm going to go hit the town here in Atlanta and go have a little bit of fun. You're going to have some fun there in your casa. Hope everybody's doing well. But thanks again, and we'll catch up next week after this Georgia Tech game.
I need to soak myself in scotch and cigars now before I wait for tomorrow's debacle, not knowing what's going to happen.
3:30 kickoff at Bobby Dodge Stadium, right down the road from where I'm at. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Later.